Difference between premise, hypothesis, and supposition. What is a premise? A premise is an assumption or condition that one believes to be true. Typically, it is a logical assumption or statement that is supported by some logic. A conclusion is therefore typically developed from a premise. It's all part of logical reasoning. What is a hypothesis? A statement or concept that needs to be tested in order to be proven is known as hypothesis. Typically, it is based on known facts that have not yet been proven. It must be proved before one can consider an idea or an explanation for something to be true. A hypothesis is an important part of the scientific process in which an idea is typically proved through some sort of experiment or research. Can a hypothesis be a premise? The idea may also be referred to as a premise, which is an assumption or a condition that one holds to be true. When one attempts to prove it, it becomes a hypothesis. Supposition. A supposition is an idea that is thought to be true, but it is uncertain whether it is exactly or to what extent. The act of supposing, imagining, or considering into account as true or existing what is known to be false or unproven. Example of supposition. The product was introduced under the supposition that there was a demand for it. There may be a demand for the product in this situation, but it may not be as strong as they had anticipated. As a result, the notion that there was demand may not be wrong but rather real, but the amount is unknown. Example: premise versus hypothesis versus supposition. Premise: the ball is round. The premise depends on what we can see and understand. Conclusion based on the premise that the ball will roll. On the premise, the conclusion is based. Because the ball is round, it will roll. Hypothesis: the ball will roll 17 feet. The hypothesis is a statement that demands evidence. It's possible that the ball will roll for 17 feet. In order to determine how far it will roll, it must be tested. Supposition: this is the best ball for rolling. The supposition is a belief. Just because the ball rolls well, you might assume that it is the best at doing so. There will undoubtedly be balls that roll better than this one. All the balls in the world cannot be tested to prove this, so it might or might not be true. Difference between premise, hypothesis, and supposition. An idea or the theory that serves as a foundation for a statement or action is known as a premise. An idea or explanation for something based on known facts but not yet supposed by evidence is known as a hypothesis. The fact that one believes something to be true without any evidence is known as supposition. Premise is an assumption or a condition that supports a logical argument. An assumption that may be proved or disproved through experimentation is a hypothesis. A belief or assumption that might be correct or true but might not, it may turn out to be false or inaccurate, is a supposition. Premise is based on fact. Hypothesis needs to be proved or disproved. Supposition may be partially true. Premise has some basis in logical understanding, partially proved. Hypothesis needs to be proved. Supposition is without proof or regardless of proof. Premise contain noun, verb. Hypothesis contain noun. Supposition contain noun. Example of premise: the earth revolves around the sun. It is a hard fact. Example of a hypothesis: because the earth revolves around the sun, we have days and nights. The earth spins in its orbit. Example of supposition: in hundreds of billions of years, a dead sun might swallow the earth. Thank you for watching this video.